Hey guys, more come follow me. We're in sections 102 to 105 this week, and that can seem like a lot of reading, and some of it is, but it is actually really, really good. 102, you could sort of just read it, because it's good stuff to know. It's basically around church councils and how they have rules around that, and they still stand that this day, and some of it's kind of tricky to understand, so don't get too hung up on 102. It's there for a good reason, has instruction, and hopefully you never have to be to a church council, because not fun. I haven't had to be. My husband has though, and he said just not cool. Not because they're harsh on you, but the way it makes you feel. That sounded really bad. It sounded like they're judging you and making it bad. And it shouldn't be like that. They're about love and about caring. So 102 just covers that. And if you've ever been in that experience where a bishop has been unkind, or a stake president, or that council has been really unloving towards you, look at 102 and see how it should be behaving. Because half that council is supposed to be on your side and help you defend yourself and whatever you have to go there for. Anyway, that kind of covers that. So have a look at that. But we're going to get right into the parable in 101. Now, I call it Parable 101. I think it's more commonly known as the Parable of the Vineyard, maybe? Nobleman in the Tower. It's the Parable of the Nobleman in the Tower. But it's in section 101. Now, we did cover section 101 last week, but this really goes in with 105 verses 3 to 6. So I'm going to start here, and it seems sort of a little weird, but it will make sense when we get through the rest of what we're covering this week. Remember, I prayerfully select what I think is going to be most helpful to someone out there, hopefully. So let's go with that. Now, to sum up this parable, a guy called Sidney B. Sperry, he kind of wrote it down very quick, and I could have written my own, but he did it so well, so let's just use his, right? Let's don't reinvent the wheel. He's done a good job. Let's go with that. So the nobleman is the Lord. Go read it anyway. It's in verses 43 to 62. Yeah, 43 to 62 of 101. Have a read of it, because parables are always good to read through and see what you get from it. But here's the breakdown. So the nobleman in this story, in this parable, is the Lord, whose choice land is his vineyard in Zion in Missouri. So specifically for this parable, but parables apply to all of us all the time. However, this particular one he's giving here is to explain to the saints in Missouri what the heck went wrong. The places where the saints live in Zion are the olive trees. That's because he tells them to go out and plant olive trees in a vineyard, which is grapevines, because, olives are awesome, right? Use them for all sorts of things. The servants are the Latter-day Saint settlers, and the watchmen are their officers in the church, like your bishops, stake presidents, your high priest group leaders that they had then, or your elders quorum presidents, or the Relief Society, which they hadn't had yet, but whoever was supposed to be looking over you. So in today's church world, it would be your leaders, other watchmen. Right up to the prophet, whatever your bishop, branch president is, right up to the prophet, any leadership there. Now, while yet building in Zion, they became at variance with each other. So they started arguing with each other. Now, what they argued about was that they said, well, we don't need to build a tower. Why do we need to build a tower? It's peaceful. No one's coming at us. We've done enough work. We've planted the trees. We tend the vineyard. We're tired. We're and no one's threatening us. We're all good. It's all good, man. It's fine. And then the enemy came and destroyed the vineyard and the olive trees because they didn't have this watchtower. So they didn't build the temple because that's what the watchtower is. So these saints were told to build a temple. Remember last week we talked about that. And had they built it as directed, it would have been a spiritual refuge for them. Far from it, the Lord's watchmen would have seen by revelation the movements of the enemy from afar. But they were lax, slothful, and asleep, and the Missouri persecutions were the result. Now, if you read about the persecutions in Saints or Revelations in context, or just go through any sort of church history type stuff, especially, and a good example of this is Horns Mill, they were told to leave that area and come somewhere else, and they didn't. They thought they knew better, and terrible things happen. Now, you don't want to wish that on anybody, but it was a lesson they had to learn. But parables really teach us how to do this. Now, this particular one, and I've got to point out here that it prefaces it by saying, I will show unto you a parable that you may know my will concerning the redemption of Zion. So the stuff's already happened to them. Now he's showing them this parable saying, this is what went wrong, but for future, you need to listen, build the towers, build the temples, listen to your leaders. So that's kind of what's going on. So failing to build the temple, or to even try, because you remember the Kirtland temple got built and they tried because you talked about Hiram just went out and started digging. Like, I don't know how to do it, but I know we need to dig, right? So I'm going to go start digging. I don't have any money. I don't have architecture skills, but I do know how to dig, and we do need to dig. So he just started, right? These saints didn't even do that. They were just like, oh, but it's, for whatever reasons. They were arguing between themselves. We don't know exactly what, but it was not going well. But it caused a spiritual blindness for the Missouri saints, and they thought they knew better. So this parable, though, is also a warning for us to use our agency and focus on the covenant path and trust the Lord, even when we cannot see the way, especially when we cannot see the way. This is the Lord calling us, motivating us to walk our journey, to follow Him. This is where safety is. This is where Zion is. It's in following Him, being safe with Him. And this particular parable in 101 links in with verse, as I said, section 105, verses 3 to 5, which briefly talk about they have not learned to be obedient to the things that I required. They didn't impart of their substance to the poor. They're not united according to the union required, and Zion cannot be built up unless it is by the principles of the law of the celestial kingdom. And they were saying, well, Zion should just be handed to us. This is what the saints in Missouri thought it was going to be. They thought they were going to arrive there and Zion was going to be handed to them. They didn't know they had to build it. They didn't think, oh, we have to actually do something to get it. So this is where that variance or that argument came in and was disastrous for many of them, unfortunately. And we don't want a repeat of that, right? So what do? President Oakes, he said, following Christ is not a casual or occasional practice, but a continuous commitment and way of life. And that's what it is. And that's why temples are so important as well. And we're going to get into that. And we're going to look more at 105 in their fifth insight. So have a look at this whole week because it ties in really well with each other. It doesn't seem to, but when you look at the different elements around the power that you get in the temple, the saving power, why is it so important, and what we need it for, then it makes a whole lot more sense, and we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned. Hopefully you got the gist of the parable. If not, have a look at the notes because I'll put some stuff in there for you. Okay, stay around for insight number 2.